partnership through the signing of what we call the Joint Commission for Cooperation, the JCC, and it was signed in July 2013. Now, the JCC is a framework for strengthening bilateral relations between Nigeria and Kenya. And there is a binational commission, which is also in the process of being established. Now, both countries have done a lot in terms of trade, and I can tell you that Kenya exports a lot of products to Nigeria. This includes tea, coffee, flowers, leather products, and so on and so forth. On the other hand, Nigeria exports petroleum products, aluminum, natural rubber, natural gum, steel products and chemical products to Kenya. Now, in the area of banking, of course, you are aware that there are some Nigerian banks that are doing business in Kenya. You have Guarantee Trust Bank, and you have United Bank for Africa. And you also have the big one, the Dangote Group, which is into cement, which is already coming into Kenya. Now, in terms of specifics, what are the deliverables and what have we been doing vis-a-vis our relations? I will tell you. On 16 July 2013, the following agreements were signed during a high-level meeting to Abuja by Kenyan officials. The first one was protocol for consultation between the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Kenya and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Nigeria. There is also an MOU on mutual cooperation between the Foreign Service Academy of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, of which I am an alumni, and the Foreign Service Institute of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So there is an MOU on ground which both academies or both institutes, could leverage on. And of course, the big one is that the former president of Nigeria, His Excellency Goodluck Jonathan, visited Kenya in September of 2013, during which the following agreements were signed. Now, let me quickly say something. It is good to negotiate. It is good to talk. But at the end of your talk, you have to walk the talk. And how do you do this? You have to sign agreements. You have to sign MOUs. That didn't come out clearly in your discussions. Usually, for you to now begin to practicalize all what you had said and all what you had committed to, you have to sign framework agreements that will now put everything in a legal perspective. Now, in case of Nigeria, and these are real agreements that have been signed between Nigeria and Kenya when His Excellency, the former president, visited Nigeria. There's an agreement on visa exemption for holders of diplomatic passports. Anytime I am coming to Kenya, I do not need any visa. There's also an MOU on agriculture, livestock, and fisheries cooperation. There's MOU on tourism cooperation because we have Nigeria has discovered that there's a lot of tourism potentials in our country, and we are not doing enough in that area. And we believe we can learn from the experience of Kenya, which has a lot of experience in that area. There's also an MOU on training of cities and towns. Why not? Mombasa and Lagos, Abuja and Nairobi could be trained, and then from there, issues of development and infrastructure could come to play. There's also an MOU on trade and investment. Now, this is aimed at boosting trade relations between the two countries. And in fact, as I speak to you, there's a Nigeria-Kenya Business Forum, whose the platform is aimed at facilitating trade between the investors from both countries. There's also an MOU on oil and gas cooperation. As you are aware, Nigeria is doing quite a lot in that area, and Kenya is just emerging as an oil and gas country, and we believe, Nigeria could be of help in that area. So there's an instant agreement on oil and gas. And when His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta visited Nigeria in May 2004, the following agreements were signed. There's an agreement on investment promotion and protection, MOU on cooperation on drug control matters. There's also MOU on cooperation between chambers of commerce, and there's also an agreement on immigration matters. Now, there's also an agreement on avoidance of double taxation. That is work in progress. Both countries are still looking at the legal documents, and as soon as they are finalized, they'll be signed. It is also pertinent to know that there's an instant bilateral air agreement, BASA, and this was signed several years ago between Nigeria and Kenya, and it is on this basis that Kenya Airways is able to fly to Nigeria. Now, Kenya Airways flies to 2 Nigerian cities. It flies to Lagos and it flies to Abuja. Unfortunately, Nigeria is not making use of that agreement for now because we have challenges with our national airline. But that is work in progress, and as I speak to you now, there are efforts, that are ongoing to ensure that Nigerian Airways too comes online. Now, these agreements and MOUs, they have opened new vistas for meaningful economic relations as they encourage private sector engagements and people-to-people interaction, which will eventually give more impetus to the spirit of cooperation between the two countries. Now, in spite of the huge rise in our relations, there are challenges. I think it will not be fair for me to make these remarks without, touching on that. And I think the key challenge here is that of implementation. You negotiate, you do all the talks, you work throughout the night, you sign an agreement or agreements, you sign MOUs, and they end up somewhere gathering dust. I think that's a very big challenge. Very beautiful agreements and MOUs we have between our two countries, but implementation is a big challenge. But as diplomats, we don't give up. We continue to engage ourselves with a view to addressing these challenges and taking our relation to the next level. I also want to add that there are other areas of cooperation and potential areas of engagement that are ongoing, particularly in the area of security. Nigeria has the issue of Boko Haram, and Kenya also has the challenge of Al-Shabaab. And there's need for the security services of both countries to work together to see how they can address some of these challenges. With these few remarks, I wish to thank the Institute again, the professor and the staff, for inviting us to this very beautiful and nice occasion. Thank you once again, and I wish everybody good luck.
We need to give our guests a bigger clap. That is not enough. Yeah, that's more like it. Yeah, we really want to thank you most sincerely. This, you can see what I was saying. You could not get this from anywhere else, really. And you have seen that he has added value to already what you have talked about. Minister, will you maybe take a few questions? Yeah. Although he is pressed for time, he has kindly agreed to actually indulge us, because this is a rare opportunity that we have. And I'll ask, or even you, the participants, to also ask questions, because this is part of learning. He has said quite a few things, made some comments also, and don't be shy. Ask him anything you would want to elaborate that would help you to understand better and to be able to deal with this kind of negotiating situations. So we'll go according to the hands we see in the room. No order at all. Whoever comes first it becomes first. I will take first 5, and then we'll see how he can. But unless you're just commenting, if you're asking a question, be very direct and to the point, and ask the question. Don't do a big preamble before the question, because otherwise it will be endless. So I saw 1, 2, 3, 4. Where is 5? No, not you. 5. So in that order, the way I have, asked you to go, the academic stuff you speak after you have heard about bilaterals of China and Germany as well. But this opportunity is for students because you need to learn. Okay, you go in that order.
Thank you very much, Professor. Before I ask my question, is very short. I want to clarify here that we are only debating the protocols we sign behind the curtains. Thank you. My question is, would you mind to comment on moderation? Not just for my own sake, but for the sake of those who are coming after me. Moderation of the discussions.
You take all the 5 questions and then you respond to them. So the second.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor and our guest. Mine is a very direct question regarding what we are discussing. The question is it, in terms of security, is it only the issues of Boko Haram and Al-Shabaab where we can interact between Kenya and Nigeria, or this and some other area? Thank you.
Maybe a question related to what has been asked about the security. We've read in the papers that because of insecurity, there is usually a lot of attack on the oil pipelines in Nigeria, either by Boko Haram or other terrorist-related actors. So, given that we have an agreement on oil and gas, we have an agreement on oil and gas in respect to Kenya, how do you give us an assurance that if we have specific quantity we are supposed to get, that we have assurance that that disruption that is caused by Boko Haram or other actors, that we don't face a problem of getting the amount of oil that probably we expect from Nigeria?
The next one.
Thank you very much for giving me this chance. My name is Tahira, and my question is closely related to his about energy and development in Africa. When we talk about development, the underlying factor is energy sufficiency and efficient use of that energy. And for Africa to realize industrialization, they should have that capacity to use its energy efficiently. Now that Kenya has discovered some oil, and it's going to discover some more, what advice would you give, like, as an acting energy minister, for Kenya to learn, for it not to engage in the problem Nigerians have gotten themselves into in terms of energy and development? Because energy is a core sector for a country to develop.
Number 4, is it number 5? Yes, the final one.
Thank you very much. I think we are somehow interested in learning a little bit more about oil. And so my question revolves around oil. And the question I would ask Minister is, what are the key takeaways Kenya would learn as an emerging oil and gas producer from Nigeria, who have been there for a while, and maybe they have made some successes and some mistakes, so that Kenya, as we move in, we do not repeat the same mistakes that other oil-producing countries have done.
Okay.
On the first question of the issue of moderation, I assume you wanted to know how he fared or how he did, right? I think you did very well But the truth of the matter is this. I'll be frank with you. And in real life, the ministers, they only give general guidelines as per deliverables, and yeah, they just make general statements, political statements, and 10, 15 minutes, most of the time they're off. Most of the job is done by the bureaucrats, technocrats, the permanent secretaries, the technical team, and all that. Ministers, they give a general overview, they if you like, a roadmap, general roadmap. Then at the end of the day, by the time the bureaucrats and technocrats must have done their job, sleepless nights, and all that, then the ministers now come and then they do the signing of the MOUs and all that. But the nitty-gritty is done by the technical people, like the issue of whether it should be 10% or, you rarely find ministers, talking about those things. They will tell their staff what they want or what are general guidelines. What do we want from this particular talk? What do we want from these negotiations? They give you the general guidelines and then they go back to their office. Don't quote me. If you quote me, I will say, I don't know what they're talking about. But the sleepless nights and is done by the technical people. At the end of the day, by the time the agreement is ready, after vetting and all that, then they call the pressmen, and then you see them signing as if they were people that burned the proverbial night candle. But it's okay. That's how it works. So generally, I can say that you did very well, and I just want to add that ministers, they deal with general policy issues. There's the technical team that goes behind to do all the details. Then the second question on the issue of security. Yeah, security cooperation does not involve or should not involve only Boko Haram. Like if you talk about Kenya, Nigeria, there are so many other issues, so many other security issues. You can talk of piracy. We know piracy is a very big problem, in the Indian Ocean. We also have the similar problem in Nigeria with the in the Gulf of Guinea. There are so many issues of piracy and all that. So those are other areas where Nigeria and Kenya can also work. You also talk of drug trafficking, the so-called transnational crimes, arms trafficking, human trafficking, and all that. All these are issues that Nigeria and Kenya could actually deal with at the bilateral level. You can also talk of capacity building. We know, we have similar experiences, British background and all that. But I'm sure our security officials can also meet from time to time to see how they can, build capacity, mutual capacity. So I would say it's not only Boko Haram or Al-Shabaab. There are also other many security issues that could bring the two countries together to discuss. Now, on the issue of oil and gas vis-a-vis securing the pipelines and all that, I would say when Nigeria started building its pipelines, the technology was not as developed as this. But I will tell you, since then, technology had improved, and piping systems too had improved. Distribution and the movement of petroleum and oil products from place to place has improved. So I don't think Kenya will face similar challenges that Nigeria had faced. In any case, when the issue of oil and gas agreement or MOU is being talked about, we are talking in terms of the trade aspect or the trading aspect of oil and gas. For the security aspect, I think we will leave that for the security agents on how to secure oil installations and all that. But generally, what I can say is that technology had improved, and so some of the oil and gas infrastructure, they are, if you like, militant proof, because in Nigeria, what you find is a situation whereby militants, particularly in the Niger Delta, they go about busting pipes, But now, I think the Nigerian government is wiser now. The pipes are put very, 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 very deep inside the soil. So for you to go in there and bust the pipe, it take you a while. Now, the fourth issue, the issue of energy and development. People say oil is a cause. For countries that discovered oil earlier, like Nigeria, that saying could be true, because apparently some of the foreign oil companies that came to Nigeria, there were no best practices, there was pollution everywhere, and that affected livelihood, and people could not fish, farmlands were destroyed and all that. But people have become very, very wise these days. And so if you talk in terms of pollution and environment and all that, there are human rights activities. There are people whose duty now it is to ensure that oil companies do not pollute the environment, and they conduct their operations according to best practices. So it's our hope that other emerging African countries that are discovering oil will learn one or two lessons from Nigeria, particularly in terms of ensuring that foreign companies they exploit the resources without damaging the environment. Now, on key takeaways, I think the first major takeaway for me is, that's addressing the last question, is one, you must carry the oil-bearing and oil-producing communities along, because that has been a very big problem in Nigeria. When oil was discovered in Nigeria in the 50s, the communities where the oil, were found, were taken for granted, for want of better words. The environments were polluted, and they were not employed. They were bringing people, foreigners, people from other parts of Nigeria to take up jobs in the oil industry, and this caused a lot of problem. So after some time, people in the area started agitating, and that's why you had the Niger Delta agitation, Niger Delta militancy, which, as you are aware, led to the trial and the eventual death of one of Ken Saro-Wiwa, a very important environmental activist in Niger Delta. So what we are saying is that if you discover oil in an area, make sure you carry the community along so that they can buy into the project, so that they will not go about, destroying pipeline infrastructure and all that. And I will tell you, the issue of agitation of oil-producing areas is still a very big issue in Nigeria. There's an amnesty program. In fact, at the time, the Niger Delta militants, agitators, they took over arms. They took up arms and started fighting the federal government. And from a production of about 2.5 million barrels a day, Nigeria went down to about 400,000 barrels of crude oil in a day. And that affected the economy. So the late President Yar'Adua had to invite them to Abuja to talk. What I'm saying is that if the communities have been taken along ab initio, all those challenges that we faced and are still facing now would not have come up. Number two for me is the issue of corruption. I think the oil and gas industry is a mega billion industry. And of course, where money is involved, there's bound to be some malpractices and all that. The NNPC, which is the biggest oil corporation in Nigeria, became so huge and so big. So, and the NNPC, the relevant Nigerian company that deals with oil and gas in Nigeria, it became so big, it became so corrupt. And now what the present government is now doing is trying to see how that huge corporation can be unbundled to maybe 2 or 3 more companies, so that they can be able to manage the oil and gas industry in a more transparent manner. So the issue of transparency is very, very important, so that the oil and gas will not be a cost to Kenya. And we also hope that some of the mistakes that were made by Nigeria will not be made by Kenya and other countries that have just discovered oil. Thank you.
Okay, maybe we can take a few more questions and then we close this session.
Thank you. Just want to pose this question to the Minister, in charge of the Nigerian bilateral agreements. Today in the world, most nations are concerned with the population of their citizens, which seemingly is really hiking every other day. And in Africa, we find that the Nigerian population has really been on the high. Just wondered, I know it might be outside the topic of today's discussion, but I just wanted to find out, now that in the next few months, the population of Nigeria is likely to hit 18 million, you as the minister in charge probably, would that be, is it an asset to Nigeria as a country, or it is a problem? So that also we can base on that as Kenya to see how we can control our own here back at home. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That reminds me, I think I need to correct an impression here. One of the ministers was saying the population of Nigeria is 130 million. That is not quite accurate. We have about 170 million going to 180 million people. Now, as to whether increased population or growing population or huge population is good or bad, or is an asset or a liability, well, it depends on the way you look at it. For us, we are the most populous black nation, and we are proud about it. We are the giant of Africa. I mean, you know, we are huge. That means that everybody is looking up to Nigeria. We have a very huge market. If today, and I'm saying this with every quantum of strength that I have. In Nigeria, if you are not lazy, you will not be hungry. You will eat. You will eat 3 square meals. Why do I say so? If you are selling even this ordinary water in Nigeria, because of the huge population, you make money. If you sell ordinary paper, or even a bureau pick, this one, you can't be hungry. So we have a very huge and vibrant population, and this is a very huge asset. If you go to the UK, some of the underground stations or some of the underground trains are being driven by Nigerians. If you go to Saudi Arabia, you see Nigerian doctors. If you go to the US, so we have a very huge Nigerian diaspora. So we are not only servicing our country, we are also servicing the rest of the world, including Africa. So, and it also depends, like I said, on the way you look at it. India, I think India has close to 900 million people. Over 1 billion, right? India. But you see,